Longhorns grab another one. This time, Michael Terry out of San Antonio's Alamo Heights High School, a do-it-all athlete type, Jerry, that's at the very top of everybody's board that's recruiting him. A tremendous all-around athlete, has played a number of different positions for Alamo Heights. Jerry, tell us a little bit about Michael Terry and his pledge to the Longhorns.
Yeah, 6'2.5", probably around 215. That fluctuates. He was 218 at one point in time. Has a best of last season of 11.05 fully automatic time in the 100 meters. So similar speed to the Elijah Bo Barnes is in Nick Townsend in this class. Those jumbo athletes already in this class for Texas. But
Jonah Williams even.
Yeah, so here you see Michael Terry playing a lot of receiver. That's what he wants his first crack at in college for the Longhorns. He was recruited in a number of different positions. He made 4 official visits with Texas, Nebraska, Oregon, and A&M. It really came down to Texas and Nebraska for him, and that was Matt Rule and Garrett McGuire. Obviously, a lot of Texas ties there for Nebraska. For Oregon, it was Will Stein and Rashad Samples, and A&M was Holman Wiggins, and Texas was kind of all the entire offensive staff. But it really came down to Texas and Nebraska, and Nebraska recruited him at wide receiver the whole time. Oregon said, we'll give you a shot at running back. Here you see him playing running back. Texas told him, we'll give you a shot at wide out. If that doesn't work out, we'll figure it out. You're one of the best athletes in the country. We want you in the program. We want to develop you, and we want you to develop at Texas. And that was a big part of the Steve Sarkisian and the offensive staff's message at Texas. So, again, one of the better jumbo athletes in the country. I call him jumbo athlete, but a guy that could play. He's more of an offensive mind. Some people actually – A&M actually was looking at him as an outside backer at one point in time, but he just didn't want to be recruited on defense initially. He wants a chance to play offense. So it ended up coming down to Texas and Nebraska, and I think proximity to home, it really was big in this one for Michael Terry and his family. And Steve Sarkisian and the staff did a really good job closing this recruitment out because he went up to Nebraska multiple times, 3 trips. 2 trips to Oregon. He made obviously several trips to Texas. He went on an official visit to A&M, but that proximity to home, I think, was a big difference for the Horns here.
Hey, Jerry, you talk about jumbo athletes. This is part of Texas moving into the SEC. Yeah. Steve Sarkisian wants to keep the speed that he's put on the field this year while also getting bigger and stronger. The whole big humans ideology doesn't necessarily only apply to the guys up front. It includes guys that are going to be carrying the ball and touching the ball a lot too. You got to be bigger, faster, stronger in the SEC.
Yeah, you absolutely do. And that's exactly what you get with an offensive player like Michael Terry. I mean, it's easy to sit there, Bobby, and think about, okay, could he do what Juan Davis does? Could he play bigger running back for Texas and be used in the passing game? And I do think there's a need for this in the Texas program. One of these bigger kind of gadget players in a bigger physical SEC conference along the line of scrimmage. Sark talks about depth all the time, but I think he'll start adding to that big body depth at all positions. I think it's going to be a part of their recruitment moving forward. They've gotten bigger at wide receiver in this class as well. So you're starting to see some changes, and they're going to continue to be fast. Don't get me wrong, but you're starting to see some changes as Texas is in the SEC now in recruiting.
Yeah, they feel like they have to have it. I just love his versatility. I mean, in this highlight film alone, Jerry, and this is from his junior year, we've seen him play running back. We've seen him play wide receiver. We've even seen play some quarterback in long yardage situations. He is a guy that can clearly play a lot of different roles, but that size and speed combo really what the Longhorns are looking for. Jerry, obviously he starts out at wide receiver at Texas. This gives the Longhorns 4 commitments at the wide receiver. Ostensibly, we think he'll start at wide receiver and actually end up there. What does this mean really for Texas in that wide receiver spot? Are they likely done at that position in the high school ranks?
Yeah, I think they were pretty much done with Dalen McCutcheon, and this is more of the athlete take that starts his career out at wide out. But, yeah, I think so, and I think you'll see Texas go in the portal for that speed guy. You know, you're always looking for that next Isaiah Bond type of guy, and I think that's where you're going to see Texas head in the portal at wide receiver. But, again, Michael Terry, you know, we'll see where he ends up. But By the way, junior year, very productive. I wanted to mention that 995 yards rushing, which you've seen most of those on these clips, 564 receiving. I think we've seen a lot of those on these clips. He also had an interception return for a touchdown in his limited time on defense. So he scored 31 touchdowns as a junior.
Wow.
This season. He's putting up good numbers again. The majority of those are running back for this team where they need him this year at Alamo Heights.
I think it's interesting, Jerry. We look at these guys, and you can see in his versatility. I could see, you mentioned a Juan Davis or a bigger kind of DeAndre Moore type, or there's just so many different ways that Sark could use him, maybe in a combo with a Nick Townsend type, where Texas has two smaller tight ends that are more both H-back types.
Yeah.
It's the versatility that Sark, and Sark has called it positionless football a lot, but that's primarily been on defense. I think Sark just likes touchdown scorers generally. However you get there, right? And that's one of those things that Michael Terry brings to the table. The other thing I think that's so big here is, San Antonio of late has been pushing a lot of players to Texas A&M out of Cibolo Steele, in Converse Judson. A lot of those guys have been going to A&M. A little bit of a change here in the top player in San Antonio going to Texas instead.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And I think that's what last season plus this season has done for Texas, right? You see Michael Terry hurdling people. Texas is, I call it cool school, and people don't like that, but it is what it is in recruiting in the minds of 16, 17-year-old kids. And Texas does have, they have that back now. It's 3 straight top 5 classes, a lot of guys drafted. They run to the college football playoff last year. The skill guys are being drafted and making big plays at Texas. That's considerable in recruiting. And I just want to add this, Bobby, based on what you said earlier, positionless football. How many times have we been asked on Coffee and Football or on our live streams, hey, could Juan Davis play running back with all these running back injuries? Here's your guy that can play running back if there's running back injuries. A guy that you could play at some tight end. You could play him at some mismatch wide receiver at times, but he can play running back. He's played it a lot if there's injuries on this Texas team next year. So positionless football, this is one of those guys on offense.
All right, Jerry, we've got Rod Babers coming up with his breakdown, video breakdown of Michael Terry and what he sees from the young man out of Alamo Heights. But I want to say this real quick. This is another top shelf recruitment and commitment for Steve Sarkisian. It just gets better and better right now. If you're a Longhorn recruiting fan, and the future of the program extraordinarily bright right now because of not only Michael Terry, but all the guys that came before him as well. Sark recruiting at a lights out level right now, maybe as good as anybody has recruited at Texas in a good 10 to 15 years, in my opinion. All right, that's going to do it. Let's give way now to Rod Babers, who's going to break down Michael Terry and his film. But before we do, I want to say one last thing. Michael Terry, hook 'em, buddy.
Hey, what's up, Longhorns? Welcome back to On Texas Football. I'm lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers, here to give you my personal evaluation of the latest commitment from the Longhorns, the athlete Michael Terry out of San Antonio. What's not to love about this young man's game? I mean, and he's a football player, right? He played in high school, quarterback, wide receiver, running back. Seen him at punter. It's not a lot of things he can't do on a football field. But I think he's an offensive guy. Just to kind of settle that, I think he's definitely an offensive guy, and I know he wants to play receiver. And why wouldn't he? If you're going to think about it, I mean, I think there are like 7 non-quarterbacks in the NFL right now making at least $30 million a year, and hey, I think 5, most of those are wide receivers, and that's why wide receiver is a glamour position right now. You can argue second most important position in football. You can see him there, physical presence, 6'3", 210 receiver with the ability to give you yak yards, run after the catch because he's got running back skills in a wide receiver frame. This is a guy that I think really the possibilities are endless about what you can do with him. Now, we know Sark wants to be more versatile on offense. He wants versatile weapons on offense, and I think this is a guy that brings multiplicity. And yes, I think he may translate to a tight end or wide receiver at the next level, but I wouldn't doubt if he's a chess piece, you move all over the football field. And Sark is the perfect mind to be able to weaponize and activate that type of athleticism. So we're talking about a rare combination of elite traits: speed, size, lateral quickness, balance. You see that at the running back position, and there's a suddenness to his athleticism too. I mean, it happens in a flash. And I think he's got a kind of very mature pace about his game too. You can see he's very patient as a runner, as a running back, allowing blocks to get into place, even as a receiver, setting defenders up. He's got great vision at the running back position and patience at the running back position too. And no doubt about it, I mean, you can tell there are some athletes that are trying to find a position, and then there are some football players trying to find a position, and he's the latter, right? He is not a just an athlete trying to figure out what he's going to do. I think he's just a football player that is going to thrive at no matter what position he ends up being at: running back, wide receiver, tight end. I think he's got those type of football instincts. So to me, he could be your version of a Deebo Samuel. I do think he could be your version of a Cordarrelle Patterson. Kyle Juszczyk is like that for the 49ers. Yes, he's described as a fullback, but they line him up at tailback. They line him up at H-back. They line him up at tight end. They line him up in the slot. They put him out wide. He can be that type of weapon. I truly believe that in Sark's offense. And so I think it would almost be doing him a disservice to only leave him at one position. I think you should move him around. It would make your offense multiple, and I think it would also help weaponize him as a player. And if you look at it, ultimately for him, I mean, this is a guy that I think even selling him to the next level, more and more at the next level, the guys I mentioned, they're starting to become a little bit more open to versatility, multiplicity. I've said before, I think the future of football is positionless football. This young man really represents that. In a nutshell, he epitomizes that the future of football is positionless football. So I would love to see Sark use him in that manner. So we're not sure exactly what the vision is. Wide receiver, tight end, running back. Why not all three? H-back, in my opinion, fullback at times. I think he's a guy you can leave on the football field, and that will make you versatile. You're an offense that can go from running 11 personnel with one back, one tight end, and then simply shift him in the backfield and turn you into 21 personnel automatically. Or you could be in 21 personnel, shift him around in the backfield, or shift him to a certain position and go from 21 personnel automatically to 12 personnel within the play. That to me is the next level of offense. That is unlocking. That is essentially what I know Sark is a big fan of Kyle Shanahan. That is what Shanahan has done. He's built this monster of multiplicity and malleability there, where every skill position guy except for Brandon Ayuk can play multiple positions. And I think Sark, although not going to make that, he's not going to major in that. I think he wants an element of that in his offense. Who wouldn't want an element of that in their offense? And that Michael Terry represents that, in my opinion. So very special athlete for Texas, and really excited, as Longhorn fans should be, about the latest community for the Longhorns. Michael Terry, athlete out of San Antonio.